Nobody asked me to show up every Thursday for 6 years. Nobody told me what it would eventually be worth. I've been debating whether to post this for weeks. Every time I open Reddit and start typing, I delete the whole thing. But after everything that happened this spring, I think I need to write it down. Partly to process it, partly because I know someone out there is sitting in the exact same position I was in 6 months ago, wondering if they're the bad guy in their own story. I'm not going to use real names. I'll call myself Diane. I'm 35 years old, live in Portland, Oregon, work as a project coordinator for a mid-size construction firm. I'm not wealthy. I drive a 2017 Honda Accord that needs new brake pads. I have $11,000 in savings and about $40,000 in student loan debt that I've been chipping away at for 12 years. I tell you this not for sympathy, but for context. Because this story is about money, specifically about an apartment worth approximately $340,000 in suburban New Jersey, and you need to understand who the people in it are before you can understand what happened. My grandmother's name is Eleanor. She's 81 years old, sharp as a tack, still does the New York Times crossword in pen every morning, still argues about politics with anyone who will sit still long enough, still makes the best brisket I've ever tasted. She lives, or rather, lived, in the sense that matters legally, in a 2-bedroom apartment in Montclair, New Jersey, in a building she's owned her unit in since 1987. She bought it with my grandfather, Harold, who died in 2009. Since then, she has lived alone, maintained her independence fiercely, and made abundantly clear to everyone in the family that she had no interest in being managed, relocated, or pitted. My grandmother has 3 grandchildren. Me, Diane, 35. My older brother, Marcus, 38, who lives in Austin, Texas, and works in tech sales. And my younger sister, Priya, 31, who lives in Brooklyn and works in fashion marketing. We are close in a way that adult grandchildren can be close. We love each other, we gather for holidays, we text in a group chat that mostly consists of memes and occasional life updates. But we are not in each other's daily lives. Except that I am in Grandma Eleanor's. I moved back to the East Coast 6 years ago after a difficult divorce. I won't get into the details, but I will say that I was 29 years old, newly single, broke in a way that felt embarrassing, and in desperate need of something stable. My grandmother called me the week I got back to New Jersey and said, very simply, "Come have dinner on Thursday. Bring nothing. I'll make the brisket." That Thursday turned into every other Thursday for 6 years. It started as dinners. Then it became, "Diane, can you drive me to my cardiologist appointment? Diane, I can't figure out why my laptop is doing this strange thing. Diane, there's a form from Medicare that I don't understand. Diane, I fell in the bathroom, nothing broken, don't panic, but I'd feel better if you came and stayed for the weekend." I want to be precise here because I know how this kind of story sounds. I was not the put-upon granddaughter who secretly resented every moment and is now looking for recognition. I genuinely loved spending time with my grandmother. She is funny and honest and intellectually alive in a way that most people I know are not. I learned more about American history, about marriage, about how to conduct yourself with dignity, sitting at her kitchen table than I ever did anywhere else. I was not sacrificing myself. I was choosing her, repeatedly, because she was worth choosing. But I was also present in a way that Marcus and Priya were not. Marcus came to New Jersey twice a year, Thanksgiving and one summer visit. He called Grandma Eleanor on Sundays, which I know because she mentioned it with obvious pleasure. He sent flowers on her birthday. He was, by any measure, a loving grandson. But he lived 1,500 miles away, and his life was full. A wife, 2 kids, a demanding job, a mortgage in a neighborhood where houses cost more than most people's entire net worth. Priya was closer geographically. Brooklyn to Montclair is about an hour, but she was in the thick of a demanding career and a social life that moved at a pace I'd never been able to keep up with even in my 20s. She visited maybe 5 or 6 times a year. She texted Grandma Eleanor gifs of dogs doing funny things, which Grandma Eleanor found baffling and delightful in equal measure. Priya was also a loving granddaughter. She was just not the one who showed up. I was the one who showed up. Update 1. The phone call that changed everything. It was a Tuesday in February when Marcus called me, and I knew from the first second that something had shifted. Marcus is not a Tuesday caller. He's a Sunday caller, like Grandma, and he texts me maybe once every 2 weeks. When his name appeared on my phone at 7:14 on a Tuesday evening, I answered with, "Is she okay?" "She's fine," he said. "She's great, actually. That's kind of the problem." He was speaking slowly, in the measured tone he uses when he's trying not to sound as upset as he is. I've known my brother for 38 years. I know all his tones. He told me that our grandmother had, approximately 3 weeks prior, completed a legal transfer of the deed to her Montclair apartment. She had transferred it, via a properly executed quitclaim deed, to me. To Diane. To the granddaughter who drove her to the cardiologist and sat with her during ice storms and learned, over 6 years of Thursday dinners, that she took her coffee with 2 sugars but only in the morning, because caffeine in the afternoon kept her up. I sat down on my couch and said, for what felt like a very long time, absolutely nothing. "Did you know about this?" Marcus asked. "No," I said. And this was true. I had known, in a vague and never-discussed way, that Grandma Eleanor had updated her estate documents at some point in the past couple of years. She had mentioned it once, obliquely, "I've been thinking about what happens to things after," and I had responded the way you respond to those conversations when you love someone and don't want to think about them being gone, by changing the subject. I had not known what she decided. I had not asked. "She told me this morning," Marcus said. "She just called me up and told me. Like she was telling me about the weather." "What did she say?" He paused. "She said, I want you to know that I've arranged for the apartment to go to Diane. I've thought about it carefully and I've decided. I wanted to tell you directly so you don't hear it some other way." And then she asked how the kids were. I held the phone and looked at my wall and felt something I can only describe as the peculiar vertigo of having the ground shift under you while you're sitting perfectly still. "Marcus," I said, "I didn't ask for this. I didn't know." "I believe you," he said. And he sounded like he did believe me, mostly. But there was something underneath the words, a tight, careful quality, that told me this conversation was not over. That a larger Messier conversation was coming, and that I would need to be ready for it. Priya called 40 minutes later. Her tone was different. Priya is the youngest of us, and she has never learned to modulate her feelings before she expresses them. This is sometimes one of her most endearing qualities. It was not endearing that night. "Did you know?" she asked, before she'd even finished saying hello. "No. Because it's a little convenient, Diane. You're over there all the time, you have her ear, and suddenly—" "Priya." I kept my voice very level. "I did not know. I did not ask. I did not influence her." "I'm not saying you did it on purpose," she said, in the tone people use when they are absolutely saying you did it on purpose. "I'm just saying it looks a certain way." I wanted to say several things in that moment. I wanted to point out that I had driven to Montclair at 11 o'clock on a Sunday night because Grandma Eleanor had called me, frightened, when her heat stopped working in January. I wanted to note that neither of my siblings had offered to take her to her quarterly cardiology appointments, even though I had mentioned, more than once, that the drive was getting long and that it would mean a lot to her if one of them came. I wanted to say that presence has weight, that showing up matters, that love expressed through actions over years is not the same as love expressed through Sunday phone calls and birthday flowers, as real and genuine as those things are. I said none of this. I said, "I think we should each talk to Grandma separately. Then maybe we can all talk together." "I already talked to her," Priya said. "What did she say?" A short, frustrated silence. She said, "I decided so." Just like that. Like it was completely settled. "Maybe it is," I said quietly. Priya hung up shortly after that. Not slammed phone hung up, but the kind of ending where you can feel the other person's exhaustion and anger vibrating through the silence before the call ends. I sat in my apartment for a long time that night. I did not call my grandmother. I did not draft any emails or text anyone. I just sat with the information and let it settle, and tried to understand what exactly had happened and what, if anything, I was supposed to do about it. Update 2. The family meeting. The meeting was Marcus's idea. He flew in from Austin 3 weeks later, a real flight, not a casual drive, which told me he was taking this seriously. We met at a restaurant in Montclair, all 4 of us. Marcus, Priya, me, and Grandma Eleanor, who arrived in a burgundy blazer and ordered a glass of Pinot Grigio before anyone had even sat down fully. I want to paint this scene carefully because the details matter. My grandmother sat at the head of the table in a way that was not accidental. She has a quality, I've always noticed it, of occupying space with intention. She did not look like a woman who was being confronted. She looked like a woman who had convened a meeting. Marcus had clearly prepared. He is, professionally, someone who negotiates large sales contracts, and he approached the dinner the way I imagine he approaches a difficult client, with pre-established talking points, a calm demeanor, and a clear goal. He said that he wasn't questioning Grandma Eleanor's right to do what she wanted with her property. He was very clear about this. But he wanted to understand her reasoning, and he wanted to make sure she had made the decision freely, without pressure. My grandmother looked at him the way she looks at crossword clues she finds slightly too easy. "Are you asking if Diane coerced me, Marcus?" "I'm asking if the decision felt fully informed." "I'm 81 years old. I have a law degree that I never used and a financial advisor I've had for 20 years. I have been informed about every decision I've made since approximately 1965. She sipped her wine. I decided to give Diane the apartment because Diane has been here. That is my reason. It is the only reason I have, and it is sufficient. Priya, who had been quiet through this, spoke up. But Grandma, it's worth $340,000. That's not a small thing. That affects all of us. It affects Diane, Grandma Eleanor said, with gentle precision. It doesn't affect you, Priya. You don't have a claim to it. We're family. Yes. And family is not the same as equal distribution of assets. She set down her wine glass. Your grandfather and I worked for everything we had. When Harold died, I decided what to do with what remained. I updated my will and my property arrangements according to my values. My value, in this case, is that the person who showed up deserves the reward for showing up. The table was quiet. Marcus looked at his menu without reading it. Priya looked at her hands. I had not said anything yet. I'd been sitting very still, watching my grandmother speak on my behalf, feeling something complicated and warm and slightly awful all at once. I want to say something, I said. Everyone looked at me. I didn't know about this decision. I want everyone here to know that. And I want Marcus and Priya to know that I understand why it feels unfair. If I were in your position, I might feel the same way. I looked at both of them. I also want to say, I wasn't there all those times because I wanted something. I was there because she's our grandmother and she needed someone. I would have shown up even if she left everything to a cat's home. Grandma Eleanor made a small sound that might have been a laugh. I know that, Marcus said quietly. I know that, Diane. And when he said it this time, there was none of the careful tension from the phone call. He just sounded tired, and a little sad, and honest. I think what's hard is that it's also a reminder of what I didn't do. And that's on me, not you. Priya didn't say anything like that. She looked at the table, and then she said she needed some air, and she went outside for about 10 minutes while the rest of us sat in a strange, suspended silence. When she came back, she sat down and said, I don't accept this. I want it on record that I think it's unfair. Grandma Eleanor nodded, unbothered. Noted, my love. Now, shall we order? I'm having the salmon. Update 3, the legal threat. I should have known it wouldn't end at the restaurant. I think, somewhere in the back of my mind, I did know. But I let myself hope that Priya's anger would cool, that Marcus's quiet acceptance would influence her, that time would do what time occasionally does and soften the edges of things. 6 weeks after the dinner, I received a certified letter. It was from a law firm in Newark. The letter, written in the dense, formal language of legal correspondence, stated that my grandmother's transfer of the Montclair apartment may have been the result of undue influence exercised by a caregiver, meaning me, over an elderly person, meaning Grandma Eleanor, and that my sister, as a potential heir, was requesting a formal review of the transfer's validity. I read it 3 times. Then I sat down and called my own attorney, a woman named Carol who had helped me through my divorce and who I trusted completely. Carol read the letter and called me back. This is a nuisance filing, she said. Your grandmother is clearly competent. She has her own attorney who handled the transfer. The quitclaim deed was properly executed. There is no legal mechanism here that is going to undo this transfer. So what do I do? Nothing. Immediately. Let me write a response. And in the meantime, I want you to get a letter from your grandmother's physician confirming her mental competency at the time of the transfer. It won't be hard to get. It's a standard document in estate disputes. And I want her attorney to provide an affidavit confirming she came to them independently and without pressure. This is going to cost money, I said. It is, Carol said. But considerably less than $340,000. I called my grandmother that evening. I tried to keep my voice neutral, not wanting her to feel responsible for the conflict her decision had created. But she had already received a copy of the letter. Her attorney had forwarded it. She hired a lawyer, Grandma Eleanor said. Not angrily. With something more like philosophical curiosity, the way you might look at an odd weather pattern. Yes. Priya is angry. Yes. She is entitled to be angry, my grandmother said. She is not entitled to overturn a legal document because she is angry. A pause. I will call my doctor tomorrow and ask him for whatever letter your Carol needs. And I will speak to my attorney. This is manageable, Diane. I feel terrible that you have to deal with this. I've dealt with worse, she said, and I believed her because she had. The next 2 months were, in a word, exhausting. Carol handled the legal correspondence. My grandmother's physician provided a detailed letter confirming her full cognitive competency at the time of the transfer and noting that she had, in fact, discussed the decision with him at an appointment 3 months prior. She had, characteristically, planned ahead. Her attorney provided an affidavit stating that Eleanor had contacted the firm independently, had arrived alone to sign the documents, and had explicitly confirmed that the decision was hers and hers alone. Marcus, to his enormous credit, sent me a text during this period that said, "I want you to know I'm not part of this. I think you should keep the apartment. I think you earned it." I cried in my car after reading that. I'm not sure I'd cried once since the whole thing started, and something about his plainness, the uncomplicated decency of it, broke something open. Priya's attorney sent 2 more letters. Carol responded to both. The legal position was, as Carol had predicted, essentially indefensible. No court was going to overturn a competently executed property transfer made by a healthy, mentally sharp 81-year-old woman with her own independent legal counsel. In late April, the letters stopped. Update 4. The silence between us. What nobody tells you about winning a legal dispute is that winning doesn't feel like anything in particular. There's no moment of triumph, no resolution music. You just notice one day that the certified letters have stopped coming, and the absence of conflict feels almost as disorienting as the conflict itself. Priya and I did not speak for 4 months. This was, in its own way, harder than the legal fight. The legal fight had structure, letters, responses, timelines, Carol's steady voice on the phone telling me what was happening and what to do. The silence with Priya had no structure. It was just a gap where my sister used to be. I thought about reaching out dozens of times. I drafted texts I never sent. I almost called her twice. Each time, I stopped myself, not out of anger or pride, but because I genuinely didn't know what to say that wouldn't reopen the wound. I couldn't apologize for something I hadn't done. I couldn't pretend the conflict hadn't happened. And I wasn't willing to offer to split the apartment's value with her as a gesture of goodwill, which I'd heard, through Marcus, was something she had thought about asking for, because the apartment wasn't just money to me. It was 6 years. It was Thursday dinners and cardiology appointments and ice storms and brisket. You don't split that. My grandmother, for her part, did not intervene in the silence between me and Priya. She mentioned Priya occasionally. I spoke to Priya, she seems well, but she didn't push for reconciliation or express distress about the estrangement. She had made her decision, she had stood behind it, and she trusted the rest of us to find our way. This was, I came to understand, precisely the quality that had made her the person she was, a deep respect for the agency of others, even when exercising her own. In June, I went to see Grandma Eleanor on a Thursday, of course a Thursday, and we sat on her small balcony with iced tea, and she said, without preamble, "Are you happy, Diane?" I thought about it honestly. "I'm relieved," I said. "I'm still sad about Priya." "Priya is working something out," she said. "Give her time. Do you think she'll come around?" My grandmother considered this with the seriousness it deserved. "I think she will have to decide whether she wants a sister more than she wants to be right." She looked out at the street below, the afternoon light falling across her face in a way that made her look, for a moment, very much like the young woman she must have been once. In my experience, most people eventually decide they want the sister. Update 5. What happened next? In July, Marcus came to visit with his wife and kids. We had a barbecue at Grandma Eleanor's. She insisted on making the brisket even though it was 90 degrees, and nobody argued because you do not argue with Eleanor about brisket. His kids ran around the small courtyard outside the building. His wife, Dana, who I've always liked, pulled me aside at one point and said, "Marcus told me everything. I want you to know that he meant what he said. He's proud of you." I didn't have words for how much that meant. In August, Priya texted me. It was a Sunday night, and the text was short, "Can we talk?" We talked for 2.5 hours. It was not an easy conversation. Priya was honest, genuinely, painfully honest, in a way that I think cost her something. She said that the anger had never really been about the apartment. It had been about realizing, when the apartment transfer made everything concrete and quantifiable, that she had not been present in the way she could have been. That she had told herself she was too busy, too far, too caught up, and that the apartment was, in her mind, the universe assigning a dollar value to her absence. $340,000 worth of not showing up. "I made it about you," she said. "It was easier than making it about me." "I know," I said. "I think I knew that. Are you angry at me?" I thought about it. "No," I said honestly. "I was hurt. But I was never angry. You were grieving something. We didn't resolve everything in that call. You don't resolve 4 months of silence and a legal dispute in one phone call, no matter how long it is. But we agreed to have dinner when she was next in New Jersey. And we agreed to put Grandma Eleanor's comfort and well-being above our own discomfort. Those two things felt, at the time, like enough. Resolution: the apartment on Maple Street. The deed has been in my name since February. I've only told a handful of people. Carol, obviously, my closest friend Jess, and my therapist, whom I started seeing in March because I thought the situation deserved more than I could give it on my own. I have not moved in. Grandma Eleanor still lives there, and she will live there for as long as she wants to and is able to. That was never in question. The transfer was never about displacing her. It was about ensuring that when the time came, the apartment would not pass through probate, would not become a battleground, would go to someone whose relationship with it had been built over years of presence rather than proximity. I go there on Thursdays. We have dinner. She makes coffee, 2 sugars, only in the morning. We do the crossword sometimes, though she's faster than I am and occasionally makes that small sound when I give a wrong answer. I drive home on the turnpike thinking about what it means to love someone the way that loving actually requires. Not in the abstract, not from a distance, not with the best of intentions, but with your actual body, your actual time, your actual Tuesdays and Sundays and ice storm Sundays and 11 o'clock heat emergency nights. I want to be careful here not to make this into a morality tale that's tidier than the truth. The truth is Messier. Marcus is a wonderful grandson and a wonderful brother, and his absence from Montclair was about geography and circumstance and the particular demands of his life, not about caring less. Priya's absence was also about circumstance and about the easy postponement that distance enables. Neither of them is a villain. There are no villains in this story. That's actually what makes it hard. What there is, instead, is a grandmother who decided to put her values into practice with uncommon clarity and courage, who looked at the landscape of her remaining years, looked at the people who populated it, and said, "This is what I believe, and I am going to act accordingly," who then sat at the head of a restaurant table in a burgundy blazer, ordered the salmon, and did not flinch. I have thought, many times, about whether I would have done what Priya did if the positions were reversed. Whether I would have hired an attorney, sent the letters, made the legal argument. And I honestly don't know. I would like to believe I wouldn't. But I have never been on the outside of something that felt, from the outside, profoundly unfair. What I know is this: I did not plan for the apartment. I did not earn it in the transactional sense. I did not show up at my grandmother's door with a ledger, clocking hours against expected inheritance. I showed up because she was there, and because she mattered, and because the years we've had together around that kitchen table are among the most valuable things in my life. If the apartment is a recognition of that, if my grandmother looked at what we built together and decided it was worth something, then I will accept that with gratitude. And with humility. I went to Grandma Eleanor's last Thursday. I let myself in with the spare key I've had for 4 years. She was in the kitchen, coffee in hand, crossword on the table, wearing the reading glasses she insists she only needs for the very small print. She looked up when I came in and said, "You're 3 minutes late." I already started the crossword. "Sorry," I said. "Traffic on the turnpike." "Sit down. There's brisket." I sat down. There was brisket. Outside, the late summer light was coming through the kitchen window the way it always does on Thursday evenings, gold and slanted, and my grandmother was solving 7 across, and everything was, in the way that matters most, exactly as it should be. Edit. For the people asking, yes, Priya and I had dinner last month. It was awkward for the first 45 minutes and then it wasn't. We're not where we were before, but we're somewhere. That's enough for now. Edit 2. To everyone saying my grandmother is the real hero of this story, yes. Obviously. She always was.